Here we go. They finally dropped the patch notes. Dawn of the Hunt, POE2 0.2.0. Boom, right there at the top. Table of contents. I'm going to try and read through this as fast as possible because it is an absolute heap of words, and I'm sure I'll need some water and breaks in between. Dawn of the Hunt League. Start fresh in the new economy. All of your old characters from early access launch are still present, but a free, passive-free refund has been granted due to the changes. Why didn't you just do that as soon as you changed things? If you can do that, you should just do that right away. Just out to the ether. It's not directed at anyone in particular or with any malice. Hey, food for thought. If anyone wants to pick that idea up. Lost and found. There you go. We would highly encourage you to join the new leagues to fully take in the changes we've made with the 0.2.0 update. There are standard, hardcore, and solo self-found variations. For more information about this update, head over towards that hyperlink. Oh, I've been yawning a lot today. Sorry. Maybe I didn't sleep very well. Added a new playable character class, the Huntress. Added the new Amazon and Ritualist Ascendancy classes for the Huntress. Smith of Kitava, Tactician, Lich, 25 new skills, 100 new support gems, 2 new item classes which are Spears and Bucklers, 100 new unique items, 8 in-game maps, 4 unique strong boxes, 12 rogue exiles, and a partridge in a pear tree. Introduced Asbarian Wisps. Added 15 new socketable items with new modifiers. Introduced Twilight Reliquary Key for all of those big whales out there. Essences can now have Veil Orbs applied to them. Continued to incrementally improve the sound, art, effects, and environments. Just, all jokes aside with the Twilight Reliquary Keys. I'm just jealous I don't have one. On top of, those items do look really cool. The foiled versions, they're very pretty to look at. Endgame Changes. Areas of corruption on the Atlas now have a central corrupted nexus that is the source of the affliction. The areas leading to the nexus corruption will spill out from the slain enemies and amalgamate into powerful monsters. Upon reaching the nexus, you will begin the task of cleansing the source of corruption. Complete this task and receive the crystalline shards that you can use to obtain Atlas passive skill points. A boss for each faction has been added. These appear in the Corrupted Nexus. Additional corruption monster factions have also been introduced. Corruption monsters have had their visuals and animations improved, and their skills have been rebalanced. Corruption areas no longer implicitly have +1 to area level, but now are much more likely to have modifiers, and the modifiers can be more powerful. Some new corruption modifiers have also been added. Cleansing a nexus will cause surrounding maps to become cleansed maps, which have their own set of monsters and rewards, including the newly introduced Fracturing Orb. Woohoo! Who doesn't love fracturing your items to continue crafting them? Even though that's probably going to be way rarer than is implied in these in-game changes here. The Fracturing Orb fractures a random modifier. Yep, we know what a Fracturing Orb does. Not going to read it. In order to open a Corrupted Nexus map, the waystone placed in the map device will need to have 4 modifiers. You can respawn and return to a map if you die. Upon first entering the endgame, you get up to 6 total attempts per map. As you add more modifiers to a waystone, the number of respawns go down. This is probably a little controversial change. I think it's them trying to have hey, we'll meet you halfway. Right? This is them basically saying, we really don't want 6 portals to just be where we are again. But it's looking like that's where it's headed. I don't know why they're trying to fight this battle with portals so much, but I'm sure they have their reasons. In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times. Okay, that's kind of cool. You'll be able to enter and exit your maps as you like, as long as you haven't died. The number of portals is representative of the number of revives you have during the map. That's really nice. Once you start a boss fight, the respawning system will change to require the map owner to collectively respawn the entire party. This is so that you will still kill the boss from full life. If you decide to rush to the map boss without interacting with any of the other map content and then die, you will respawn at the map. Why are these? Why does mapping come with like an entire instruction manual now. At the boss checkpoint, and the only map boss will be present. All the other monsters and content will be removed. This is to prevent cases where players would be able to farm multiple copies of the same rewards by dying on purpose. Is this going to be intuitive? This, when I get to my mapping portion of the game, please tell me that there's going to be like a little bit of a like explanation as like what I just read in game, please. That is far too complicated of an explanation, I feel like, for it to not have some sort of a like little tutorial there. Number of towers on the Atlas has been reduced drastically, but each one is now more powerful. I'm not going to say that, sorry, just to have another aside, I'm not going to say that I don't like understand what it's trying to say with the portal system changing as soon as you engage with a map boss, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't sound very intuitive, right? Like, at what point does it like snap on? Tablets inherently add twice as many mechanics to towers. Using higher tier waystones and towers also now increase the number of mechanics applied by tablets. By tier 15, the bonuses double. Tower maps can now spawn with all extra content mechanics, including bosses. That's okay, I guess. But you still have to do towers, so they're still forced content. The number of maps affected by tablets has been doubled on average, and now also scales based on map tier. Is there much wider radius? Killing rare monsters required for map completion no longer has a chance to grant monster modifiers to the remaining rare monsters. I didn't know that was a thing. Increase the chances for rare monsters to have 3 or 4 modifiers in maps. This is mostly to compensate for the removal of rare monsters, granting their modifiers to others on death. This means they drop more items. This also means they kick your ass more in a game that you don't have any way to mitigate damage. Checkpoint now spawns when the last available optional content in the map has been completed. Extra content such as Breach, Delirium, Expedition, and Ritual now start spawning further away from the Ziggurat Refuge. Waystones are obtained in the map has been redesigned. Our intention is to make both sustaining waystone drops much more reliable and less dependent on random elements. Waystones. Waystones can no longer drop at a lower tier than the map you are in. Waystones dropped by final map bosses will now always be 1 tier higher than the map you are in. Can no longer drop at a lower tier than the map you are in? I don't know how that'll feel. I don't think it's ever worked that way in POE1. That's a strange change. Final map bosses and the final naturally occurring rare monsters in Tier 1 maps have a 100% chance to drop a waystone. This chance scales down as you get into higher tier maps, but will still be guaranteed with appropriate investment into waystone suffix modifiers. And through the Atlas passive tree, natural waystone drops have been reduced to compensate. What? This chance scales down as you get into higher map tiers, but will still be guaranteed with appropriate investment into waystone suffix modifiers and through the Atlas passive tree. So they're basically saying if you want to sustain maps, you have to go a specific path. Natural typo! Natural! Waystone drops have been reduced to compensate. So, it sounds like we got better waystone drops, but at the cost of the Atlas passive tree being, like, more explorable, which is kind of bad, if you ask me. I don't really like that. Like, couldn't you have just made Waystones drop more? Like, what's going on with all of the, like, fear of drops? Removed chances for Waystones to drop a higher tier from the Atlas passive tree. They're confident in this, I guess. We'll have to see how these like guaranteed monsters that drop a Waystone or whatever end up feeling, but I don't know. Can you really like guarantee that? And if it's like a guaranteed monster modifier, won't that get stale eventually because it's like taking up space from other modifiers? Well, I obviously I haven't tried it yet, but I don't know. That's just it doesn't really like make sense in my head whenever I try to like reason it out. Remove chances for Waystones. We already read that one. Sources of map boss have a chance to drop Waystone for a chance tier higher has been replaced by increased quantity of Waystones from map bosses. Doriani now has 10 Waystones available to purchase. Overseer tablets now cost 2 through 4 maps in range to contain bosses. The Waystone chance granted by Waystone suffix modifiers has been reduced as a result of the new chances to drop Waystones. Unidentified Waystones now provide 30% increased Waystone drop chance instead of 30% increased quantity. First 5 different unique maps you complete each now grant 2 Atlas passive skill points for a total of 10 points. Okay, so it's going to give you more Atlas passive skill points at least when starting out. The specialties of some maps have been adjusted to account for the addition of Asmarian spirits. Added new modifiers relating to Asmarian spirits for Overseer's tablets. Added new modifiers relating to Asmarian spirits for Rogue Exiles. Untainted Paradise now has more experience granted. Crafting mechanic of recombination has been added. You have a chance to fail that, by the way, so that both items get deleted. Tablet modifier causes ritual favors. Overseer tablet, map boss, precursor tablet, extra content. Tablet modifier that increases. These are all just like tablet modifiers. Okay, I'm not going to read through all the tablet modifiers. We'll just have to find those in game once we start picking up tablets. The various in-game quests that lead to the Arbiter Verash encounter have been consolidated into a single quest. Modifier and simulacrum for rare monsters have an additional modifier no longer appears. Clinical boss content now takes roughly half the amount of time. Players no longer lose experience from dying in simulacrum or at other boss content. Move the location of the stash in simulacrum. Reduce the power of notables. Delirium. Each time a reward type is filled, base number of monsters spawned in Delirium has been reduced. Reduce the intensity of the fog. Breach spawns have been reduced. Higher percentage of the total breach spawn numbers are now spawned earlier. Reduced number of small breach chests found. Breach splinters can be obtained from breaches in all map tiers. Breach and Delirium encounters are now considered complete when you open the clasped hand or Delirium mirror. Strong boxes now spawn slightly more packs of monsters. Omens now always appear as ritual rewards in map areas. There's also a small chance for an additional omen to appear. Vendors of Ziggurat Refuge and those in your hideout now correctly have the level 65 items available. Can we gamble with Alva yet? If you exit the game while in an in-game map area, logging back into the game character will now place you back inside the map instance if it still exists. Atlas passive tree changes. Asmarian spirits changes and Rogue Exile changes. More notable passives. Deadly Evolution Atlas Keystone has been replaced by a new keystone called Ecological Shift, which causes your maps to have 40% more chance to contain random extra content, 20% less number of monster packs in your maps. 40 Atlas passive skill points, previously 30. Crumbling Walls Atlas passive now has 10% chance for an additional breach, previously 15. So that's getting nerfed. In Extreme Archaeology, notable Atlas passive no longer causes monsters to spawn 20% of their life missing. What does it do then? The Frantic Invasion Atlas passive notable now has 50% increased quantity, previously 75 nerf. That's a buff for the grasping hands with 25% difference. This is a nerf for interdimensional assault. Omnis Portents has been buffed up to 100% for ritual favor. The Rising Pyre Atlas notable passive now has breaches in your maps. Have 25% increased monster density, previously 40. That's pretty big nerf. General improvements. In order to work around a common crash that was occurring on NVIDIA hardware, recent drivers, the game can now recover from device removed events. Display a loading screen while it attempts to recover. It's just gonna like relaunch the game. Strong boxes can now appear in certain Act 1 areas. Added a stash to the treasure room in the Trial of Chaos. Many fire skills now visually burn grass in areas. Improve the performance of summoning and reviving minions. Okay. Burning grass, is that going to have a performance impact? Further improved safety checks, preventing using movement skills to skip the elevators in the Trials of Chaos encounters and prevent the encounters from functioning correctly. Jumps performed when using Escape Shot and Toxic Growth now allow you to use jump over enemies in small amounts of terrain. Vaulting Impact will also receive this change at a later date. The Decay debuff from Decaying Hex support now uses a more appropriate visual effect and displays below the enemy's life bar. Grenade skills now have random variation in travel distance. That's cringe. Firebolt now uses the same animation as Freezing Charge instead of generic projectile spell animations. Updated 3D art for Stash and Guild Stash. Player changes. Characters are now required to be at least level 25 to enter Cruel difficulty. Areas in level 20 or in level 50 to enter in-game areas. I wonder what change that's for. Player's base attack speed while unarmed is now 1.4 attacks per second. Previously 1.2. Killing Palm, Shattering Palm, Staggering Palm, and of Chiola now have 25% less attack speed to compensate for this change. Previously 10%. Yep, can't have them benefiting. Freeze now builds up 48% slower. Nerfs. Player base ailment threshold is now half of maximum life. I don't know what it used to be. Oh, previously all of maximum life. Does that mean we're getting more maximum life, hopefully? Are we getting more maximum life? We talk about that? Why do... Can we get some, like, organization in terms of, like, good news versus bad news? Can we get, like, a nerf section and then just, like, a buff section? Monster modifiers stolen from rare modifiers such as through behead support have the effect they provide to players adjusted to be more appropriate. So, less good. That's what I get from that. Cruel version of Candlemas's essence now provides 5% increased life. Previously 8%. I'm not gaining confidence. The Worn Sandals Trial of the Secuma's Affliction now grants 30% less movement speed if you've been hit by an enemy recently. Previously 25% reduced movement speed. Okay, it's at least not an absolute brick. I've gotten that one before and it was just like, yep, I can't do this anymore. Okay. Blocking a hit by raising your shield or parrying now gives you a chance to avoid accumulating heavy stun buildup equal to the chance you would otherwise have had to evade the hit. Unified stun mechanics and terminology between players and monsters. The stagger that players suffer when blocking too much damage with their shield raised is now a heavy stun. Players are still unable to be heavy stunned unless a mechanic specifically states otherwise. Players can no longer be light stunned. Modifiers to curse effect have been changed to instead apply to curse magnitude. This means that they are multiplicative with any other sources of the effect of the debuff on the target. For example, curse magnitude and slow magnitude are now multiplicative with each other for temporal chains. Player created objects such as ice crystals no longer have a monster power value. Ice crystals no longer apply on kill effects such as Herald of Ash and Trample Toes Overkill. Are they saying that that build is dead, basically? Players have 50% more light stun threshold per time stunned in the last 4 seconds. Heavy stun bar. Heavy stun. Players can't block or evade while heavy stunned. It's kind of a big change for our ability to mitigate things. Critical weakness stacks now track duration individually. 10 targets can no longer evade. Okay. These are all going to be able to affect us as well. The base duration for endurance, frenzy, and power charges is now 15 seconds, previously 20. The nerf. Fully broken armor now causes enemies to take 20% increased physical damage from hits. That's 20% more damage, basically. Revivable minions. Oh wait, that was just like there was nothing else there before, so that's just broken armor is kind of better now. Revivable minions now spawn with their skills on cooldown. This only applies to newly summoned minions, not minions that have just revived. An ancestrally boosted slam now has 30% more damage and 20% more area of effect. Previously 20% for both. So 10% more damage for ancestrally boosted. Persistent minions granted by Ascendancy passive skills will now automatically be summoned when you allocate the passive for the first time. Players and monsters now only count as moving while moving rather than for the whole length of many animations that have some movement duration. That's confusing. Setting a stat to a specific value, such as Chaos Inoculation setting your life to 1, now occurs before conversion is applied to that stat, rather than being ignored by conversion. Ascendancy Changes. Surprising Strength Ascendancy Notable now provides 50% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. Previously 40%. So Titan gets buffs. Warbringer. A lot of Warbringer changes. The Warcaller's Bellow Ascendancy passive skill now causes Warcries to explode corpses. This allows for Warcry area of effect to scale the corpse explosion radius. That's a good change, I guess. Turtle Charm Ascendancy passive skill now has 25% less block chance. That's a buff. Encased Jade skill has been reworked. It now consumes all stacks of Jade to grant guard based off of your maximum life for each Jade stack consumed. Ancestral Spirits granted by the Answered Call Ascendancy now has minions from the skill has 1% increased accuracy rating per 3% of your dexterity, and minion from this skill has 1% increased damage per 3% of your strength. Minions granted by this skill have had the following changes. Jade Caster's pinning skill has had its cooldown reduced to 10 seconds. Ancestral Jade Hulk now has 300% more stun buildup. Warcaller's Bellow buff from Warhorn now grants 10 rage on hit. 20% increased skill speed. Power Shalara from the Ancestral Spirit Turtle now grants nearby allies 80% increased defenses. None of those really stick out to me as like crazy good. Yeah. What is the reason for taking that? I don't know. Gimlin Legionnaire. The Enhanced Effectiveness Ascendancy passive skill now grants 20% less attributes. I don't play enough Gimling Legionnaire to know how bad that is. The Integrated Efficiency Ascendancy passive skill has swapped positions with Gem Studded. It no longer provides +3 skill slots. Instead, it now causes skills to gain 20% increased damage per socket red support gem. Skills gain 6% increased skill per socket's green support gem. And skills gain 20% increased critical hit chance per socketed blue support gem. The implanted gem's Ascendancy passive skill no longer provides +1 to level of all skills. Instead, it now provides a choice between +2 to level of all skills with the strength requirement, +2 to level of all skills with the dexterity requirement, or +2 to level of all skills with an intelligence requirement. 20% less attributes for enhanced effectiveness is kind of bigger than I think I'm able to currently understand. Witch Hunter, the No Mercy Ascendancy passive skill now causes you to deal up to 40% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. A little bit of a buff, but that does not make it good because Witch Hunter is still in a pretty bad state overall. Obsessive Rituals Ascendancy passive skill now provides 35% less armor and evasion rating, previously 50%. The sorcery ward barrier recharge delay has also been reduced by 2 seconds at all gem levels. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think that that is like a good defensive layer, if you ask me. The Thrilling Chase Ascendancy passive skill now provides when you consume frenzy charges, you count as having consumed twice as many. Previously a 50% chance, described in a slightly different way. So really no Deadeye changes. Like none. Alright. Pathfinder. The Running Assault Ascendancy passive skill now grants 50% less movement speed penalty from using skills while moving. The location of this passive skill has been swapped with Restless or Relentless Pursuit. I'm yawning a lot. The Connected Chemistry Ascendancy passive skill has been removed. Enduring Elixirs no longer has a prerequisite. By Connected Chemistry Ascendancy. Added a new multi-choice Practical Remedies Ascendancy passive skill that provides the ability to allocate Grounding Stick, Dusting Vial, all the other. Provide immunity to shock, immunity to ignite, immunity to freeze, respectively. So Pathfinder is getting some big quality of life. Added a new Sustainable Practices Ascendancy passive skill, which provides 30% evasion rating. Also grants elemental damage reduction, requires practical remedies. That's pretty good. That's really, really good. That's crazy good. Pathfinder is doing well with that change. That is a very nice defensive layer. Because evasion is like one of the best defensive layers right now. And then you're going to tell me that they also get elemental damage reduction? That's crazy. That's really good. Acolyte of Chayula. The Embrace of the Darkness Ascendancy passive skill now provides +8 to maximum darkness per level. The Ravenous Doubts Ascendancy passive skill no longer provides Mana Leech as instant. Mana Leech recovers based on other damage types as well as physical damage. Honor lost during the trial of Sekimas is now taken before the Acolyte of Chayula's Darkness. They said, stop having fun with this. We want this to be bad. We want this to be the worst Ascendancy. We don't care that this is the only reason for this Ascendancy to exist. We want you to stop doing that. Stop that right now. And Protect Me from Harm Ascendancy passive skill now provides 50% less evasion rating, previously 40%. So Invoku's getting a little bit of a nerf. The Lead Me Through Grace Ascendancy passive skill now provides 1 spirit for every 8 energy shield, previously 6. Holy crap. Wait. Oh. I thought it was 6 spirit that it was granting, but no, I'm stupid. It's 6 energy shield. And 1 spirit for every 20 evasion rating, previously 15. I don't know how big of a change that is, but I'm sure it'll be felt a little bit. Elemental Expression skill granted by the Scatter Time to the Winds Ascendancy passive skill now deals 40% more damage at all gem levels. Didn't play it, don't know what it's like. Blood Mage. Blood Barb's Ascendancy passive skill no longer provides 10% of the damage gained as physical damage. It now causes bleeding you inflict on a cursed target to be aggravated. I think that's worse. Maybe I'm wrong. Added a new Between the Cracks Ascendancy passive skill that causes critical hits to ignore monster armor. Requires Sanguimancy. Don't really know what Blood Mage is like. I know Quinn made a pretty powerful build with it though. Infernalist. The Demon Form skill granted by the Demonic Possession Ascendancy passive skill now has a cooldown of 15 seconds, previously 20, and a maximum Demon Flame of 10. The Grinning Ice. Sorry, let me sit up straight. The Grinning Immolation Ascendancy passive skill now provides 50% more critical damage bonus, previously 30%. Infernalist got a lot of changes. Pyromantic Pet Ascendancy passive skill now causes 50%, previously 10%. That's a big change. Bringer of Flame Ascendancy passive skill now causes all damage from you and allies in your presence to contribute to Ignite, Chance, and Magnitude. Instead of providing while not on low Infernal and Flame, all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to Ignite, Chance, and Magnitude. No longer required Pyromantic Pact. The Loyal Hellhound Ascendancy passive skill no longer causes 20% of damage taken from hits from your Hellhound's life before you. Really? Why? What? Why are you taking away a defensive layer? Stop doing this! The Master Darkness Ascendancy passive skill now grants Demon Flame has no maximum. Small Mana Ascendancy passive skill now provides 3% increased maximum mana. After allocating the Pyromantic Pact Ascendancy passive skill, you will now have at least one maximum Infernal Flame, even with 100% reduced maximum mana. Using Blink while in Demon form now plays an appropriate animation instead of landing to blink. Chronomancer. The Circular Heartbeat Ascendancy passive skill has been removed. Rapid River no longer has a prerequisite. The Quicksand Hourglass Ascendancy passive skill now grants every 10 seconds gain 50% more cast speed for 5 seconds. Added a new Flood for Echoes Ascendancy passive skill that grants the Unleash skill. They sure are using a lot of skills as Ascendancy points. The Force of Will Ascendancy passive skill now grants 1% increased effective Arcane Surge. For 25 max mana, previously 15. 12% from 20. So Stormweaver's just getting nerfed. Full Mana Ascendancy no longer provides mana regeneration. Instead, they said stop stacking as much mana. Passive skill tree changes. Now that Huntress is here, they've added support throughout the passive skill tree. Mostly in the Huntress Ranger area. Many passive skills have been updated. These changes may result in your existing passive tree being forcefully refunded if you have allocated nodes around the areas where the layout changed. You know, you're probably aware of like a lot of the different things that are just like straight up attack damage, attack damage, attack damage over and over and over because there's like no spears in the game yet. So that's going to be what they mean. New Thorns related cluster, that's kind of cool. Companion related clusters. Presence clusters. Parry related clusters. Bleeding clusters. Crimson Assault Keystone. Causes bleeding you inflict to be aggravated and base bleeding duration to be 1 second. Added a new trusted kinship keystone southeast of the ranger and hunter starting location. Trusted kinship allows you to have 2 companions of different types. Causes companions to have +1 of each defense for every 2 of that defense you have. And also causes you to have 30% less defenses. Oof. Bunch of notable passive skills have been removed. 12 jewel sockets have been removed from the passive skill tree. Acrobatics skill now grants 75% less evasion, so it got nerfed. Eldritch Battery now has additional property of doubles mana cost. Oof. Giant's Blood Keystone now has triple attribute requirements of martial weapons. Previously only affected axes, mace, and swords, but was described as weapons. So it's just weapons now? Cool. I like that. I'm a Giant's Blood enjoyer. The cat-like agility notable now provides 40% increased evasion rating if you dodge rolled recently. Previously 25%. Still don't think that's enough to make it good or a popular choice. Falcon Technique notable passive skill now grants 1% increased attack speed per 25 dexterity. Previously was 15 dexterity. Freedom of movement notable passive skill now grants 10% reduced movement speed penalty from using skills. The heavy buffer notable passive skills now grant 5% of damage taken bypasses energy shield instead of 10% reduced maximum life. Icebreaker notable passive skill now grants additional freeze threshold. Previously 100%, so that got a big ol' nerf. Mana changes for Mana Blessing. Mana Fletching notable passive skill now provides. Yep, lots of passive skill tree changes. We'll figure them out as we go. Skill changes. Many skills have had their base damage and or damage growth per level rebalanced. Mana cost for all attacks, marks, and war cries has been reduced. Thank you. Thank you. Minion damage and life scaling. Minion changes. Minion changes. Ah! Arc no longer deals more damage for each remaining chain. Archmage now causes non-channeling spells to gain 3% of damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 mana spent recently. Previously 5 through 6%. Okay, so it got nerfed by half basically. So Archmage did get nerfed. Armor Breaker got nerfed a little bit. Artillery Ballista got buffed. Ancestral Warrior Totem states that it wields a two-handed mace to clarify that it benefits from your mace-related stats. Banner skill changes. Barrage now repeats 50% less damage at all gem levels. Brutal. Bleeding Concoction now has 200% more magnitude of bleeding inflicted. Previously 100%. Damn. Bleeding is in a bad spot, I guess. Blink is now a travel skill. It wasn't. Bone Blast has 40% chance to inflict bleeding on hit. Previously 20%. Bone Storm Shrapnel is now Impale. Bone Storm now implies on hit instead of applying a specialized buff. And 200% more Impale magnitude. Okay, Bone Storm as a generalized buff for your build is gone, I think. Cast on Minion Death now only gains energy when persistent minions are killed. So no more Summon Raging Spirit Deaths? Okay. Cast on Shock now gains 1 energy per power of enemies you shock. cluster grenade, mini grenade buff. Combat Frenzy has a gain frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy. Conductivity now causes cursed enemies to have minus 25% lightning resistance, previously 32%. Nerfs. Lots of skill changes. Herald of Ashes, or basically all Herald skill changes, are going to be about how they don't chain off of each other anymore. I can't say I really care too much about any of the skill changes. Like, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. Whatever. I'll see how they feel, and whichever one feels fun, I'll probably end up playing. Or I'll have to make a new character because you can't respec easily in this game. It's supposed to be about experimentation. Support changes. I ain't reading all that. Unique item nerfs. Against the Darkness nerf. I'm gonna be honest, none of these are really like... I think they... Are these all nerfs so far? I think so. There's a lot of nerfs, I'm pretty sure. Just glancing over them. Don't care about reading the item changes. Monster changes. Bosses that need to perform certain actions to progress their fight will now become immune to damage if their life is brought significantly past the point at which that action should be cursed or should be used. No, but it is cursed though. No, phased boss fights, forced phased boss fights. You're not allowed to skip it. Armor on all monsters has been reduced by 30%. Okay. Soul Eater on monsters now grants 1% skill speed, 1% less damage per stack. Previously 5% and 2%. That's a little egregious. 5% skill speed and 2% less damage taken per stack. Now stacks to a maximum of 50. Previously 45. So before, they were getting a maximum of 90% damage reduction. Yeah, I don't know who is making the decisions here. The life of the following pinnacle bosses has been adjusted. I don't care. The life of the Trial Master and Zarkov the Temporal have been reduced. The following bosses no longer have armor penetration. The lower damage conversion of other elements of swim skills for the Arbiter of Ash and Olroth. These are all like pinnacle boss fight changes. Boss fight changes, boss fight changes, boss fight changes. Quest changes! You can now open the Helani gates before you can advance the Ascent to Power quest to the point of being able to travel to the Trial of the Sekimas. Yeah, we need a general Act 2 rework. Whatever that act is, it is just all over the place. I'm not saying that the areas aren't good. I'm saying with like the traveling caravan and like I don't know. I just need it to be more linear, I guess. Maybe I'm just a boomer. What do I know? The Earning Passage quest now ends on entering the Ardur caravan in Act 2, rather than after speaking to Zarka and Vastiri outskirts. Added the ability to spectate party members if you died in combat. Added the ability to pan the minimap overlay when using a controller. Hovering over any instance of the presence keyword will now show an indicator. Yeah, these are just interface changes. Microtransaction changes. enable the following armor transactions: Deepwater, Misery, Pandemonium, Finisher effects, Portal microtransactions, Pet microtransactions, Skin transfers, Display case hideout decorations, and then there's a bunch of bug fixes. Alright. Below, features were showcased, but unfortunately were not able to be included in the 0.2.0 patch. We will place these in as soon as they're ready. Added the ability to lock your main hand, offhand, or both so that you can use the same item between weapon sets. I don't remember them teasing that, but I don't remember needing it either. I don't know why I would need it. Be like that, but okay. We really hope that you enjoy Path of Exile 2 Dawn of the Hunt. Thanks for your support. Then it's a hyperlink to the store page. So yeah, not sure how I feel about the unique item nerfs. They are adding a lot more unique items to the game, so we'll just have to wait and see what those end up feeling like or how cool they are. I'm rather excited about the unique items. I'm super excited about parry. I'm excited to try some of the new skills. I'm excited to see what the new support gems are like. I want to try the new Ascendancies, especially the Ritualist. I really want to try the Ritualist. I really want to try the Smith of Kitava. I don't know how I feel about the Tactician. And then the Lich, it could get a pass over from me. So overall, a little bit weird champ on some of the changes. A little bit nerfy, if you ask me, especially when it comes to defensive layers that these Ascendancies have available. I don't think that they should be nerfing any defensive layers because defensive layers are going to be what make the game feels good to play, even if you don't have like top tier damage. Like 9 times out of 10, I feel like people are going to end up complaining if they're dying too much, whether you're a softcore player or a hardcore player. Or if it's just like, you know, frustrating to play because you have to like play arduously slow in anticipation of these things that you just don't really have any answers for due to the current design of things. So, yeah, I'm excited. Bummers aside, 100 new unique items, 100 new supports, 25 new skills, 5 new Ascendancies. I'm ready to dive in there and try a lot of it out. Doomers be darned. I'm not here to be a doomer this time. I'm here to give it a good try and then see what I think of it. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Have fun.